Okay, Pressol chemical resistant sprayer V2. I'll talk a little bit about the other sprayers here in a little bit, but the spray bottles that I've been pursuing here, that I've been importing from, I guess, Germany via the Czech Republic. I don't know if it's vice versa, but the bottles I believe are manufactured in Czech Republic, but it's a German manufacturing company. They do a lot of different sprayer types things, and I stumbled upon these bottles. An OG follower suggested I take a look into them. I brought 3 of them in to the tune of about $100, $110 a piece. I bought them on like random, European eBay site and a couple of other sites that I brought them over from Europe. I bought one orange bottle, which isn't part of the line. One of these, I think I bought one of these translucent bottles, one of these. And then I've got one of the black ones. And I love the black one and the translucent one, but it cost me, $300 and something to get 3 bottles here in the US, and I was using them for several months, and they were performing quite well. So the plan here, when I started to launch these bottles, or when I started to bring them in, or when I decided to bring them in, was to ask you, the viewer, the person that's part of this thing, whatever you want to call it, Obsessed Garage. But the plan was to ask you to help me figure these things out, right? So what I did was I took the risk and I bought $20-something thousand, my cost, worth of bottles from a company that I don't know anything about, where there's a language barrier, where we're meeting on Zoom with their English translator, and we came to the conclusion I'm going to take a roll. I'm going to take a stab at this. And so I brought in 2,000 bottles, which isn't a lot of bottles in the bottle world, and we sold them all really quickly. Especially these 2 sold out in like a couple of days. And the ask, and I'm going to continue this ask, the ask was that you buy them. We're not going to do a warranty thing. This would be an early adopter. I spent $300 and something to get 3 bottles. You don't have to do that. You're going to spend, 14 or 17 bucks on a single bottle. And if it doesn't work, let's just throw them away. Or hopefully I'll be able to get replacement parts, which I'm going to talk a little bit about here today. And we found out very quickly a couple of failure points. I still, to this point, I don't know if these are going to be the ultimate bottle. I just don't know. But what I do know is that I like where we're starting. I'm hoping that we can start to modify them. But before we start to modify them, we have to get them right. And we found some failure points that probably shouldn't be failure points. And so we already have one fix, especially for these bottles. And so hopefully we can continue down this path of getting it right. So let me explain. So when I got my 3 bottles, those 3 bottles were working great. I was using them in different products. And you saw in one of the videos, I had been using those bottles for several months. You saw in one of the videos, I started spraying one and it started spraying a little wonky to the right. It had Carpro Eraser in the bottle, and we come to find that the tip had separated. So if you take a look, here's an example of a tip where the end broke off. And I just thought, well, shoot, it's probably the alcohol in Carpro Eraser. Maybe that's the issue. And so then we got them out in the wild and people were having them fail. Some people were having them fail, some people weren't having them fail. But we found the issue, and the issue ended up being, so here's an example of a sprayer. This tab, or the portion where it atomizes, so the portion where the water comes out or the liquid comes out, in order for this to work, the tip had to be torqued all the way down to the very end, so it was extremely tight. And so all the rest of the threading wasn't allowing the allowing this to atomize, wasn't creating enough pressure inside for it to mist out. And so you're getting straight until the very last turn, and then it would atomize. And atomize pretty nicely. I think that we can improve upon it, but pretty nicely. And so over time, the pressure that's being exerted, or the pressure that's sitting on the edge of the tip, especially as we're using it like a piston and moving it in and out all the time, that pressure eventually wore out these rather stout HPDE plastic heads. So come to find out, it has nothing to do with the chemical. It wouldn't make sense, because all these chemicals that we're using to wash cars, HPDE plastic, it shouldn't be an issue. So we shouldn't have an issue there with for the chemical, especially on a chemical resistant sprayer. So since we figured that out, I was able to share this information with Pressol. All you guys giving feedback, figuring out, what's the issue, what's the problem. People are sending me photos. I ended up never even needed to create the spreadsheet. I'm going to save that for version 2 and version 3 and version 4. I talked about creating a spreadsheet to share with you, or to share with Pressol what the issues were. Well, we found very quickly what the issues were by sending a few thousand bottles out into the wild, and then that confirmation has been extremely helpful. So my thesis of this whole thing was that rather than me buying 50 bottles or 20 bottles and using them for the next 6 or 7 years to figure out the issues, let's do an accelerated testing by crowdsourcing or crowdfunding this. I'll take the risk and gather it, and then you take a small risk by buying a bottle, and worst case scenario, you just throw it away. So we've gotten to the bottom of some potential failure points of the bottles, which I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting to have failures. I was expecting to make improvements. And so this is why I'm not even sure if this is a viable thing. But I like the bottles enough. I think they're cool looking. They kind of grow on you. I think that they're of the right ilk. I just want them to be really great. I want them to last a long time. If we're going to spend $15 on a bottle, I want them to be stout. I want them to work, and I want them to function for a while, at least a year or so, and I want them to look the part and have other features that we're going to chase in the future. So the fix is they changed the tip. So the internal of the tip, there's a little chamfer, or a little edge, and I'm not going to be able to show you this on camera, but inside of the tip, there's a little edge that's at an angle. And so what they've done is they've taken the angle and made it a little less aggressive, so that there's less pressure sitting on the head of the tip. It's also, they've changed the thread as well, where it threads on much more seamlessly, much easier. I don't have to dry off my hand and really torque it down. And so if you look at the spray pattern of this bottle, so if I come off and I start, so these bottles, their natural tendency is to spray 3 feet or 4 feet across the room. And so when I come to create enough pressure in the head, then I eventually end up with a little bit of atomization, and then a nice, decent double pull misting action. Okay? So the previous gen, we needed to torque it down. So I still have room to play with here, where it's not sitting snugly on the head of the internal part of the sprayer. So they've changed the tip so that the tip now shouldn't fail. But again, there's only one way to find out, is to send them out into the wild. I mean, I could sit here testing them and using them for several days, or we can make them available to all of you to try for a fraction of what I paid for them. Pay $15 or $16 for a bottle. We'll ship it out to you, and you can keep trying. So the blacks, the reds, they've made that adjustment. For some reason, they didn't make the adjustment to the other bottles, so although I have probably $15,000 worth of bottles, worth of these other colors, I have a conference call set up with them. I just get too excited about this. I can't wait. So I've been using these for several days. The improvements, I think, are solid. I think that they're good. I don't know, but we're going to find out. Those of you who want to take a flyer on this, you can. If you don't, then you don't have to. In worst case scenario, I'll have thousands of bottles that I can use for the rest of my life. So, take that for what it's worth. I just know myself, and I know that if somebody gathered up a bunch of bottles and they weren't sure about, but they thought they were pretty good, and I trusted that dude, then I would pony up a few $100. I'd buy 24 of them, and then I just punt them if they didn't work. And so I'm banking on some of you doing the same thing, and helping us chase this, OG spec bottle that I want. And remember, what I'm asking is, let's not bother Pressol. I mean, they don't have a frame of reference for what we're looking for. They're using these sprayers in I don't know what application, but it's not what we're doing. And so I'm trying to take this industrial-made product and provide it to us who are in this detailing thing, and want a decent spray bottle for around the house or around the garage. So I'm asking you to if you buy this bottle and you don't like it or it doesn't work right, hang on to it, but because I might have some improvements for them as time goes on, but don't, we're not going to be doing warranties and playing these games where you're calling and asking for 2 or 3 more. I'm asking you to do what I would do, which would be to just buy it, try it, use it, put it through its paces. I'm probably also going to ask you in the future to provide me some more data if we need it. So I'm basically asking you to help me accelerate the testing of these bottles, so that way I can go back to them and say, this is what needs to be fixed, this is what needs to be fixed, this is what needs to be improved. And if we keep doing that, and I think it'll probably take 3 or 4 times over 3 or 4 years, if we keep doing that, I think we'll all end up with a bottle at a much lower cost than where they are today, because I'll be buying much larger quantities, and I think we'll end up with what we're hoping that we all get, which is, or hoping we all want, I'm hoping we get what we all want, which would be a bottle that lasts, that works well, that's ergonomic, that has dilution ratios, that has fill lines, has different colors, has great labels that we can put on them, and so you guys have heard me talking at this ad nauseum for the last 4 years, and we're taking one step at a time. It's probably going to take me 10 to get there. I'm okay with that if you are. If you're not, then you just won't buy them, and I just won't do it again, and I'll do it on my own, or it'll just take me 20 years to get it done. So I do appreciate all of you that have taken a flyer at this, and I know that what I don't want to do is I'm not staking my reputation on these bottles. I'm telling you where they are, where we're at with them. So I think they're good. The failure points, I don't think, or I think have been fixed, but again, I don't know. So take that for what it's worth. If you don't want to take the risk, don't take the risk. It's gonna, when I say risk $15 or $12, and you don't have to. So a couple of other things to mention. We also have replacement heads. So if you had any issue with your head, I don't even know what these cost me. I'm just marking them at $5. So we have replacement heads. I have replacement tips. I'm going to do these at like 10 cents, so I purposely didn't even look at the invoice, and just the only reason I'm making them 10 cents, you have to put them in for some value or some number. So these are the new tips that should fix the issue with your old bottles if you had some of your tips fail. And so these will be in the system for 10 cents a piece. And I'm sure some of you are saying, well, why don't you just give them away? And where do I draw the line? I was just going to set it up there. It's much simpler for me to set up the structure in Shopify, where you buy them. We can structure that instead of getting 1,000 emails and people trying to, I'll be missing people and all that. So I'm just going to create some structure, make it a low enough cost that you could very easily, add this to your cart and show up with. And we can send you some bottles or send you some tips to replace your bottle. So we have new heads for the black bottles, heads for the red bottles. You could interchange them if you wanted to change the heads out. There hasn't been any, from what I can tell, there hasn't been any change to these. So these are the same, the threads are the same, the head is the same. The only difference is in the tip. So the tips are different. If I get some more information from Pressol, again, it's hard to, we're playing a language barrier and stuff. It's hard to communicate back and forth. They're on a different time. So just keep that in mind, that I don't even know what all the improvements are. I know some of you are going to be yelling at the screen, but look, you don't understand how difficult this is to get this stuff, how difficult it is to import 7 pallets worth of bottles from a foreign country. Those of you who may do it for a living, there's 3 or 4 of you that have probably become experts at it, but you know what it's like to get this stuff done, especially with a company that really isn't all that interested in what we're doing, being as we're detailing and they're more on the industrial front. So I'm attempting to work with them to convince them that this is a viable marketplace, and so we're making some progress there. So I'm treading very lightly to make sure that we can get these, but I don't want to do normal Matt Mormon like Tasmanian Devil and show up and like most of us would and demand excellence. It just doesn't work that way in this particular case, and in most cases when you're trying to convert industrial products to be used by us prosumer types. So tips will be available, like I said, and you can take the new tips, put them on the old bottles, and I've tested them out. They seem to function well. And again, this advanced testing that we'll do by getting thousands of them out there, or at least hundreds of them out there, will get us done quicker. So the bottles come in 500 mLs, 750s, and 1,000. I ordered twice as many of the 750s because I think that's the best size. We sold those out almost instantaneously. Yeah, they're just. This tip has improved greatly. Once you set it, you don't really need to change it. But these are pretty darn good. Do I think it could be better? I think it probably could over time. I think we can continue to improve. But if we can at least start with having tips not fail, I think we're off to a good start. And then we can start to work on modifications in the future. But like I said, I think this is going to be a multi-year process. I think I'm going to have to sell lots and lots of bottles to you in order to convince them that we're a viable marketplace or a viable place for them to chase. And so that's going to involve us all kind of taking one for the team, because I don't have enough money to do what you all combined can help me do. So I know many of you think I've got $75 million, but I don't. So I'm doing this one step at a time. So we have the 3 different sizes. I'm going to launch, if you're watching this video, it's up in the store ready to go. The 3 different sizes and the 2, what I believe to be the 2 best bottles. I'm working on the others where I'm trying to figure out, because again, they didn't change the tip design, so I'm working with them. I have a conference call set up to talk about, launching the blues and the translucents, which I have pallets of them. So I hope they figure this out. And so I'm going to sit on those. I don't want to sell those. They work, but there's a decent percentage of failure rate of the tips, and there's also a decent percentage of the failure rate of water leaking from here, and so that's unacceptable to me. I know that going in, so I don't need to gather any more information from you. I already know the issues. These, I've been vetting them, testing them for a few days now. A few days isn't enough time, but I know many of you have been emailing me and wanting to get your hands on one, so I'm going to open it up to purchase, and you can kind of help me test it out. The other thing that we have available are the straws, the weighted straws. The way that these bottles work, if you haven't watched the previous video, the way that they work, they're 180 sprayers. So think about this weight, this filtered weight. This weight comes and sits on the liquid side of the bottle, so you can use it up or down, up, left, right. They're not 360 sprayers, they're 180. So think about the logic of this weight, this weighted straw moving, however you needed it to move in order to have it sit in the right spot. So I've got replacement straws. The straws hadn't failed, but if you damaged yours somehow, because these will kink pretty easily, or if you've damaged it from using some sort of heavy caustic chemical, these I'm putting in, again, I don't even know what they cost, I'm putting them in for $1. It looks like $1 is a good cheap number for a pretty decent looking straw and stainless steel weight. So that's where I'm at. I've got, what, 800 black tips. I've got, I think I've got 250 of each of the red and black 500 mLs. I've got 500 of each of the red and black 750s. I've got 250 each of the red and black 1,000 or 1 liters. I've got, I think, 100 of the sprayers, the replacement sprayers. Again, you shouldn't need these unless for some reason something's failed inside of here. Again, I'm putting these on pretty much cheaper than they cost me, just to, you know, again, to systematize this. Again, I'm asking for your help here to fund this project and chase these bottles. So pricing will be on the website, but we're somewhere in the $14 to $18 range, depending on the size you get. Chris has to do the calculations for me, so I don't want to quote it now because this video will live forever on YouTube. But it's somewhere in the let's say $15 range for the bottles. These will come down in price over time, because if we get these right and I get them improved where I can call them OG spec, then I'll be buying, you know, 50,000 bottles at a time, and the price will come down to the low teens or, you know, high single digits. And so I think that it's viable for us to get there, where you can have a really great bottle for $9–10 bucks and get a year or two out of it, or maybe longer, depending on how much you abuse it. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. I don't expect some $10 plastic part to last the rest of my life, but I do expect it to last quite a while. I do expect it to get quite a bit of use. I do expect to be able to refill it often, and I do want to have amazing labels. So the goal of this for me is to have differing colors with dilution ratios and fill lines, and I want to be able to take my bottles, all 750 ml bottles, and line them up on my shelf with a generic type, or maybe even Obsessed Garage logo type that shows that we have, you know, what we have in the bottle. So I could take my beloved products from all over the world, and I can take them and put my own, or put the products that I choose into the bottles that I love. That's what we're chasing here, and the bottle doesn't exist. So I'm hoping that these are it. If they're not, we'll punt them, and us cumulatively will punt them, and we'll try something else. But right now, there is nothing else unless I spend $1 million to go out and create my own bottle and own molds, and just think about the risk there. You go create your own blow molds, and then they don't work, and it's not the right bottle. So maybe someday we'll chase that. I'm hoping to get these bottles to be able to put my name on them, call them OG spec. So thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Again, they're live. We have 1,000 or so of these ready to go. We'll talk more about the others once I have those at least vetted to where they're good enough to send them out into the wild and have you test them. But once again, I'm asking you, if you're going to buy these, don't call and email and request warranty returns. We're calling these no warranty. We're calling these, you're buying them, you're trying them, you're going to compile data for us. We'll have you submit that data if we need it, if we didn't figure it out from just people sharing on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. I'm taking a big risk here, and reputationally, so I'm hoping you understand that. I'm hoping you understand why I'm doing this. And if you don't, I'd ask it, just don't buy it. I'd rather lose the 30 grand that I bought on bottles than to have you angry at me because you've spent 12 bucks or 15 bucks on a bottle and it didn't work out like I said it may or may not. So don't hear the may, it may not. But I think they're good enough. It's certainly good enough that I know I would spend $100 on a dozen of these bottles or half a dozen of these bottles to try out and to see if they work. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. This is a crazy one. I get it. So stay tuned for more of it. More crazy coming. Thanks for helping me chase these projects. Catch you on the next one.